they're all used up now. Good morning. This is Lois DiStefano, the Director of Marketing at Kendal on Hudson, and we are delighted that you're taking your time to spend with us to learn some really valuable information today. Here at Kendal, anything regarding finances is of great importance. The financial stability of Kendal on Hudson, your financial situations are vital to being financially qualified for Kendal on Hudson, where your assets are, what type of assets they are, from home ownership to investments. And also, monthly incomes make differences too. Some people have pensions, some people don't. And all of it is a balancing act. So I can speak to you today just a little bit about Kendal on Hudson's financial stability. We are open now 19 years. We're looking forward to our 20th anniversary. Our occupancy rate right now is at 97%, and that's a very nice, strong number. Those are numbers you want to hear. We have 1,000 days of cash on hand, which means if we had no income for the next 1,000 days, which is almost like 3 years, we would have enough funds to pay all of our bills. When we have a fully funded reserve fund as well for refunds or anything of that nature. And the third important part is that we've recently been rated by the Fitch group. I think they call themselves a grouper, but it's a business that rates largely healthcare industries, people in healthcare, and you just can't say, Fitch, guys, you want to come and rate us? No, it doesn't work that way. How it works is you have to apply to be rated, and then it's a very big procedure. And the first time we received a triple B plus score, which for life plan communities, that puts us in the top 6% of the nation, not New York State, of the whole nation. And now we get to reapply again, and now we're looking to move up a notch, and they only let you move up a notch at a time. But that Fitch rating is a very important component, and you won't find all life plan communities that have one. So we're very happy that we do. And the reason this is all important is because when you move in here, you're going to want to know that Kendal's going to be open for the next 20 years. And the person that moves in the day after you want to know that Kendal's going to be open for the next 20 years. And how do we get that confidence in Kendal, and how do we convey that to you? And it's important to look at the past. One thing I learned from my daughter, who tells me a lot of what I should be doing, but the best thing I learned is don't buy first generation anything. Get to see how things operate. And we've had a wonderful operating history for 19 years with great occupancy. So that's all important. So now how do you create a portfolio and a financial picture that will get you to your retirement goals? And will you have enough money for retirement? And it's more than just getting a financial planner. That today, having estate attorneys are a part of your team, and they are essential. So before I go further to get to our star of the day, we do have another star here. We have Joey Starr, who is our marketing coordinator. And he's going to be facilitating this meeting, and many of you know him or have spoken to him. And the other star of the day is Kylan Johnson, who, when I met, I knew right then and there that he has tremendous talent and wonderful messages to give. So, Kylan, we want to thank you so much for your time today, too, and for the things that you're going to share with our guests. So it's all yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lois. Thank you for the introduction, and nice to speak with everybody here today. I'm going to, here we go. So I'm Kylan Johnson. I am the owner and attorney at Hudson Valley Estate Planning out of Sleepy Hollow, New York, right here where Kendal on Hudson is. I'm an estate planning and elder law specialist. And I've been licensed in New York for over a decade. And so today we're going to talk about estate planning. We're going to talk about elder care. We're going to talk about types of care. But let's start first with estate planning. What is estate planning? So I went to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary and looked up what the definition was, and it's the arranging for the disposition and management of one's estate at death through the use of wills, trusts, insurance policies, and other devices. And why should you establish an estate plan? You know, a lot of people think, well, I'll be dead, I won't have to worry about it anymore. Well, the reasons to establish an estate plan are voluminous. First, that you get to choose your heirs and what they receive. If you don't have a will or you don't have a trust, your estate will be decided by the state and decided by state statute as to who will get what. You also can make things easier on your heirs in terms of how you arrange your estate, whether through will or through trust. You can also avoid estate taxes. There is a federal estate tax, and here in New York, we have a state estate tax, which is much lower than the federal threshold, but institutes a significant tax burden. And then also to allow you to plan for your long-term care through your estate plan as well. So here are the 5 essential estate planning documents. This is what I think everybody needs to have. Okay, including me. I'm 38 years old. I have these things. My mother is 71. She has these things. And anybody beyond or in between definitely needs to have these things. A will or a trust. And I will talk about the differences between those two here in a minute. A power of attorney. So a power of attorney is you're giving the power to some person, or hopefully to 2 people, a primary and a secondary, that will run your financial life if you become incapacitated, unable to manage your financial affairs. The healthcare proxy is like the healthcare power of attorney. That is the person that will make healthcare decisions for you should you become incapacitated. A living will are the directives that you give to your healthcare proxy to say, if I get injured or if I become, if I'm in a permanent, permanently lack brain function, I'm in a permanent vegetative state, here are the types of care that I do or do not want to receive. Here are the types of life-prolonging procedures I do or do not want to receive. And then finally, a HIPAA waiver. And this is more of a modern need of a document. And this is just to ensure that everybody that you've given healthcare proxy power to also gets access to your medical records to be able to make those decisions for you. You and I both know you go to doctor's offices, you go to hospitals, they all have seemingly different HIPAA compliance rules. So that waiver just ensures that everybody that you want to have access to your medical records gets them. So let's talk about a will versus a trust. As an estate planning attorney, this is probably the #1 question that I get. And what I like to say is you should establish a will instead of a trust unless you have one of these factors or more than one of these factors. First, you want your heirs to avoid probate. A lot of people have gone through probate with relatives in the past. A lot of people are probate phobic as a result of that, given the time and the expense that's involved. And so if you want your heirs to avoid probate, you definitely should establish a trust instead of a will. So a will goes through probate, and I'm going to talk about the probate process a little bit so you kind of understand just kind of the basics of what that looks like. Whereas a trust does not go through the court, through the probate court. Assets pass according to the trust document, and it's all run by the trustee that you appoint. And so I'll talk about that here in a minute as well, a little bit more in depth. If you have a net worth greater than 6.9 million, you should look into a trust. So 6.9 million is the estate tax threshold here in New York. If you go 5% over that, your entire estate, even below 6.9, will be taxed at a 16% level. So one way to get around estate taxes is to set up an irrevocable trust. And an irrevocable trust will remove control and benefit from certain assets, thus removing it from your estate, thus bringing down the value of your estate when it comes to examining your estate for estate tax purposes. So if you have a home that you don't need to control or benefit from meaning, selling and getting the assets, you can still stay in the home when you have an irrevocable trust. If there are life insurance policies, investment accounts that you don't need access, you don't need to control or benefit, I definitely encourage you to place those things into an irrevocable trust and then pass those things on to your heirs through that irrevocable trust. Third, if you have property in multiple states, I definitely encourage you to do a trust instead of a will. And that's because if you do a will and you've got a property, let's say in Florida and New York, your heirs will have to go to probate court in New York and go to probate court in Florida to get ownership of those two properties. With a trust, the properties do not pass through probate, and so they will avoid having to go to an ancillary jurisdiction. Let's say you live in Florida, your kids live in you live in Florida 6 months of the year, but you live in New York 6 months of the year, and your kids live in New York. You pass away, your kids will have to go down to Palm Beach County, Miami-Dade County, for example, and go to probate court there, or hire an attorney to go to probate court there to get ownership of that property. And so obviously a hassle, and obviously a reason to go trust instead of will. Also, if your heirs need assistance with their inheritance, so if you want to pass on money to grandchildren who may be under 18, if you have grandkids or children that are special needs and need more support going forward, need a trustee that looks over their financial life, or if unfortunately, which is too common these days, if you have heirs that are addicted to drugs or to alcohol, a trust is a very good way to ensure that money is not going to that individual without any strings attached, not going to them outright, and is going toward their health, education, maintenance, and support rather than to their addictions. And then finally, if you need public assistance with your long-term care. So similar to how trust can help you avoid estate taxes, if you need to qualify for Medicaid for long-term care, getting assets out of your control and out of your benefit removes them from Medicaid consideration. And we'll talk a little bit more about Medicaid a little later, because I obviously, as an estate planning and elder law attorney, get questions about Medicaid a lot. So I talked about this a little bit. There are two types of trusts. There are irrevocable trusts, which means it's a permanent trust. Once it's established, it cannot be undone or significantly altered, versus a revocable trust, which is non-permanent, alterable. And there are different reasons for establishing each type of trust. It is not one size fits all. And unfortunately, I see a lot of attorneys people need irrevocable trust for the goals that they're trying to accomplish, and they're given revocable trust, and they're not going to accomplish their goals through that. So an irrevocable trust, here are some of the pros and cons. So it's a great estate tax prevention mechanism for the wealthy. It's necessary for Medicaid eligibility protection. It's also necessary for Medicaid asset protection. So Medicaid long-term care, not the health insurance, but the long-term care for facility or in-home care. Think of that more as like a loan. Okay, the state through Medicaid pays out the cost of your long-term care, and then the deal is when you pass on, they will place a lien against your estate, and most prominently a lien against any property that you hold, any homes that you have, to recover the cost of the care that they've provided to you. Now, if a home is in an irrevocable trust, or if property is in an irrevocable trust, doesn't go through probate, a lien cannot be attached to it. And so as a result, the state does not recoup the cost of your care by getting access to your property. And then finally, there's some credit protection that can be provided to beneficiaries as well. So if you have a child or a grandchild that you want to pass things on to that is in a litigious profession, let's say they're a doctor, right? A lot of medical malpractice claims out there. Passing things on to them via irrevocable trust ensures that if they get sued with a medical malpractice case, and they lose for some reason, they lose that case. That what you're passing on to them cannot be attached to get money from that case. The judgment that comes from that case, they cannot get money from the irrevocable trust to pay that judgment, and so that ensures that they have some money that is protected for them should that be the case. The cons are you lose control of the trust assets. You have to hire a separate trustee. You can't be the trustee of the irrevocable trust, and so a lot of people, that's a bugaboo for them. If for Medicaid, you're going to lose the ability to substantially profit from trust assets. There's a little bit of a nuance here when it comes to IRAs and 401ks and the ability to get RMDs. You're required to get RMDs after a certain age. So there's some nuances there, but for the most part, you're not going to be able to substantially profit from trust assets. So when the house gets sold that's in a trust, you don't get that money. The trust gets that money, and then it's distributed to your heirs, however you set it up in your irrevocable trust. And then finally, they're expensive to establish and administer. It's expensive for attorney's fees to draft irrevocable trust because the rules are so complicated around this to avoid Medicaid or to avoid estate taxes. And then the administration of it may not necessarily be, you can have your daughter or son or somebody along those lines be your trustee. You can also hire a bank or a trust company to be your trustee. But whether it's a financial cost or whether it's cost in time and effort, they are rather expensive to administer. But with that burden comes the benefit of avoiding substantial estate taxes and avoiding disinheriting your children if you go on to Medicaid for long-term care. Revocable trust, the big thing there is avoiding probate costs, right? Because things pass through the trust rather than going through probate. You can also avoid will contests that way. So there's nowhere to contest a will if you've done a trust, because the trust doesn't go in front of a court. You can control and benefit from revocable trust assets as well. So that's a big benefit. And then it preserves estate privacy. So if you don't want your estate affairs going through the court system and thus becoming public record, a revocable trust is a very good way to go. They are more expensive to establish than a will. They're not as expensive to establish as a revocable trust. Another con is that you often are serving as your own trustee, and so that's some time and effort for you. And you don't get Medicaid eligibility or asset protection. So if you need estate tax prevention or you need Medicaid, irrevocable is the way to go as well. So let's talk a little bit. I've said probate, right? And in the course of this conversation. And so I'm just going to give some quick hits here on probate. It's very complicated, but generally what happens is your executor is going to submit your will to a local probate court after you pass on. Your executor will get a letter of testamentary from the court. They will then go about settling all your debts, selling all property, and then distributing proceeds as your will states. They have to fill out forms during this. They have to make court appearances. Oftentimes, a lot of heirs hire an attorney, which obviously adds some cost as well to the whole process. And honestly, it can take a year or more. It depends on the complexity of your estate. The most expensive thing typically is the personal property that you have. And, think about, who's going to, inventorying all of the wine that you have and all the knickknacks and all the fine china and everything that you have in your home, and then distributing the value of those, selling those things, distributing the value of those things. Obviously, it can be time intensive. And so the final thing I want to hit on here is payable on death or transferable on death accounts are not subject to probate. So think investment accounts, bank accounts, life insurance policies. All of those things have beneficiary designations that you can attach. So you can do it online, or you can call them up, or you can, if it's a bank, you can go into the bank and they're going to have a beneficiary card. And so you can set up the beneficiaries on those accounts however you wish. And then those things avoid probate. So that's definitely something I always encourage people to do. So let's talk about irrevocable trust, revocable trust. Who's a good fit, right? So we talked about this a little bit, but just to hit it home again, irrevocable trust, wealthy individuals, low-income seniors without long-term care insurance, or middle-class seniors without long-term care insurance, because we know, and we're going to get into here in a minute, how expensive long-term care is. And so even if you're middle class, even if you've got 2 million, 3 million in assets, but you don't have long-term care insurance, the cost of your long-term care, if especially if it's for several years, is going to dwindle down the value of your estate. Revocable trust, if you're a multi-state property owner, if you've got individuals in like a squabbling family, so you want to avoid those will contests, if you're probate phobic, or if you've got great long-term care insurance. And so we're going to cover long-term care insurance and the benefits of that a little bit later on here. So there are cons, though, of all trusts, and I like to be upfront with people about this. So somebody's got to serve as trustee, and it's a big job. So in a revocable trust situation, it can be you. Irrevocable trust situation, it's somebody else. Maybe you hire them, maybe you don't, maybe it's somebody in your family. But the bottom line is that they become custodian of those assets that you have. It could be homes, life insurance policies, bank accounts, whatever it is, tangible personal property, your art collection, your wine collection, whatever it is. And so it's a big job. All property that's placed in trust must be retitled. So if you've got a house and it's titled to Kyle and Johnson, for example, now I would have to go down to the county clerk's office and I'd have to do a new deed for that home, and it'd be in the Kyle and Johnson irrevocable trust. And there are insurance implications for that. So you want to make sure when you do that, for example, when you transfer the home, that you inform your title insurance company so that you keep clean title, so that eventually when that home gets sold, it can be sold with confidence from the new buyer, because they're going to want to expect clean title, right? You're going to want to inform your homeowner's insurance company, because now they're insuring a property that's technically owned by another entity. An irrevocable trust should have its own taxpayer ID number, for example. And so a car, if you have a car that's in a trust, revocable or irrevocable, you're going to want to inform the property insurance company. You're also going to want to go to the DMV and make sure that the new owner of that is the trust, not you individually. So now we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to talk about long-term care, and I'm going to get a drink real quick. I'll let you kind of look at this for a second. So there are a lot of different long-term care options, okay? And they run from, bad to good. And then there's great. And we're going to talk about great a little later on here as well. But sort of in the bad category is what I would consider as family care. So things aren't the way they used to be. Back in the old days, when grandma and grandpa were old, they would just stay in the house and everybody would live together and in peace and harmony. And unfortunately, that's just not the case anymore for a lot of Americans. We're more separated and bifurcated, even within families these days. And so individuals that sort of expect a daughter or a son or a niece to take care of them, oftentimes those individuals, they lack the time, the energy, or the medical expertise that you need to get the care that you need. And seniors, oftentimes, I hear this all the time, I don't want to feel like a burden, or I feel like a burden to my family. And so family care can often create that burden. You can also hire a private home health aide. And so I've heard some real horror stories, especially here in New York, about squatters in people's homes that, the home health aide moves in to take care of the person. And then suddenly the home health care aide's family moves in. And then when you try to get them out of the house, they claim squatters' rights on the house. And then the other thing is you need to follow employment laws if you're going to hire a private home health aide. There are payroll tax implications. There's, all the different regulations that apply to a New York State, an employee in New York State, right? And so a lot of people, they're paying money under the table and all of that. It's not the right way to do it. It's a recipe for disaster. I've heard some real horror stories around that. Then you can have Medicaid facility or in-home care. I consider this a good last resort if you lack wealth or you lack long-term care insurance. Bottom line, you need long-term care, right? If you have these ailments, but the facilities are not luxurious, and these days it's really hard to find facilities and it's hard to find caregivers. So people that come into the home that work for an agency that accepts Medicaid or facilities that accept Medicaid. So many here in New York and really throughout the tri-state area are private pay. And then you've got assisted living facilities. So these provide assistance with personal care. They provide some medication assistance. If you need more care, skilled nursing really comes in. You get that therapeutic, rehabilitative care, assistance with all your activities of daily living, 24-hour medical assistance, medical professionals on staff 24/7. So if you find yourself in need of that type of care, a skilled nursing facility is definitely recommended. And then memory care, unfortunately, personalized care for people with dementia or other forms of memory loss. And I'll just pause here and give you a little bit of backstory on me. How I got involved in estate planning and elder law was actually through my grandmother. My grandmother was my biggest fan growing up. We called her Mama. And unfortunately, when Mama got to 83 years old, seemingly overnight, she developed dementia. And it was as if she was fine one day and then she was mentally gone the next. And Mama lived for 5 years with dementia. And unfortunately, she never forgot me. My mom thinks that there were times so her daughter was the primary caregiver for her. And, there are times that my mom thinks that maybe she kind of forgot who her daughter was. But Mama was able to go into a memory care facility. Mama was able to, get money would continue to come in to pay for that because my grandmother had set up power of attorney, healthcare proxy, had arranged her estate to where if disaster struck, that she would be taken care of. And so my grandmother was able to get that 24-hour assistance in a memory care unit because she did her estate planning in the right way. And so, unfortunately, we're living longer these days. We're physically more healthy, but it just seems like anecdotally, I'm not a doctor, but it just seems like anecdotally, there's more memory loss issues as time goes on here. So Kendal on Hudson, as you know, if you're on this call, excuse me, I went through all those different types of care. Kendal on Hudson is the best of all worlds, right? With a life care contract, you can transition from independent living to the levels of care that you need without significant changes to monthly fees. That is an incredible thing because I go to so many other facilities out there and it's, sort of a low introductory price, right? But when you need skilled nursing or you need memory care, the price is going to increase 70 to 100%, maybe over 100% once you need those advanced types of care. So Kendal and Hudson, you get in with the life care contract, you transition, and you don't get significant changes to your monthly fees. Unbeatable amenities and surroundings. I have been to this community many times, and I absolutely love it. It is the place that I aspire to retire to personally. I live about a mile and a half down the road from it. One of my favorite things, actually, that I'll talk about here is I'm a big fitness guy. I run like a 10K five times a week on the treadmill. I lift weights 2-3 times a week. And I went into the gym here at Kendal on Hudson, and they have Techno Gym, which I had never seen before. I've spent all this money on gym memberships over, for 20 years probably. And they have a thing where you put on this wristband and it measures it. You know, it has technology, sensors, and things, and it measures what your what weight you can handle on different machines, and it remembers that so that when you come in the next day, it knows that, hey, you know, or you know, that we can go up maybe 5 pounds on the chest press or whatever it is. And maybe if you're slacking and you miss 4 days, when you come in and you swipe your band on the different machines, it says, hey, you haven't worked out in a while, we're going to take it down 5 pounds. And so it's a really great way. I wish I had it personally, but I think it would keep me on track a little more with my fitness goals, to have that. And it's really, for seniors, it's a great way to avoid injury, right? And so that's just one of the amenities here. The food's fantastic. A world renowned seemingly ice cream bar, as well. So Kendal is just absolutely fantastic. And then finally, to make it even better, you can get a tax deduction for all or some of your monthly fee, depending on where you're living on property. So there's a lot of different living options that they have here in Kendal and Hudson, including independent living. But some of those qualify for tax deductions because for the medical deduction. And so that can help you offset some of the cost. Offsetting some of the costs also could be long-term care insurance. So let's talk about how to pay for long-term care. So the first and foremost is out of pocket. And what here, in the industry, in the care industry, is called private pay, right? You go into some place, so, oh, we're private pay. Oh, we're private pay. So that just means out of pocket, right? You can also pay it with long-term care insurance. So if you were fortunate enough, 20 years ago to buy a long-term care insurance policy, it's going to cover a lot of your cost, depending on what you got, especially if you got inflation protection. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. You can have a mix of out-of-pocket and long-term care insurance. So if long-term care insurance isn't covering all of your costs, then paying out-of-pocket a little bit plus your long-term care insurance, that can provide for your long-term care. And then finally, there's Medicaid, as we talked about earlier, that pays for long-term care. So the long-term care insurance advantages. So I know some of the folks on this call have it, and I get this question a lot. Should I keep my long-term care insurance? And I always say yes, because your premiums may be tax deductible. Your benefits that you receive are tax-free. It may not cover all your care costs, but it's better than nothing, right? So if you've got, $50,000 a year that you can get from your long-term care insurance policy, well, that's $50,000 a year that's not coming out of your pocket. That's $50,000 a year that's staying in your investment account. And these days, we know the market's up, right? All-time highs. And so you're making money off of that $50,000 rather than putting it towards your care. And then some policies have inflation protection as well. And so the folks on this call, you may have long-term care insurance. If you have children, they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, I would definitely encourage you to tell them, get a long-term care insurance policy. There are still 3 providers out there, 3 insurance companies out there that offer it pretty significantly. Some people have pulled out of the market, but I definitely encourage you to tell them to get long-term care insurance with inflation protection, because the value of it is going to be significant down the road. Long-term care, the costs aren't going down, folks. They're never going down. They're only going to be going up. And that's it for my presentation. So my information is here. As I said earlier, I'm an attorney from Hudson Valley Estate Planning right here in Sleepy Hollow. I serve Westchester, Rockland County, Putnam County, a little bit in Orange, Dutchess, the Bronx, Manhattan. And so you can contact me here if you want any more information. If I can help you or a loved one in any way, I'm happy to do that. And so now I think we're going to transition to a little bit of Q&A as well. So Joey, did we have any questions come in?
Not personally. I just to encourage everybody, if you came up with a question along the way, you can use the little Q&A button that should be towards the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, you can kind of move your mouse over, or if you're using a phone, I guess kind of tap down there. You can click on the Q&A and pop a question in, and then I will present that question to Kylan for you.
Very good.
Kylan, I have a question. First, I want to say thank you so much. That was very informative, and I really learned a lot today. Those 5 steps that you said you need, the healthcare proxy, I need everything. And I'm not, yeah, and I'm not gonna just put it on the calendar or on the side and say, okay, get my stuff. I'm really gonna do it this time. So thank you for bringing out the importance of that.
Yeah.
So my question has to go with an irrevocable trust. So when a person has an irrevocable trust and they own a home and they want to move to Kendal on Hudson, and the most likely way to purchase the Kendall contract is from the sale of the house. So how is that done when somebody has an irrevocable trust?
Yeah, so the trustee could with an irrevocable trust, you're giving the trustee power to sell property, to keep property. Typically, you're going to give them voluminous powers. Excuse me. So they can sell that trust. They can sell that property. They can get the proceeds from that. And then if they're going to buy into Kendall, depending on how that's arranged, a couple of things can happen. One is they can do a gift from that money as well. So the gift tax threshold is very high. There's no gift tax in New York. From a New York state perspective, there's a gift tax on the federal perspective, but your heirs could give you a gift to get you into there. There may be the potential to do a loan as well, or to do some sort of kind of loan-like agreement. Can get complicated a little bit, but that's typically kind of the best way to do it. The other thing is that I don't know what Kendall's requirements are, but if it's possible to purchase something in the name of an irrevocable trust as well. I don't know. But to do a contract in the name of irrevocable trust, but that would be another way to where like the trust is paying for those things through the irrevocable trust. And so yeah, if you've established an irrevocable trust for that property and you're moving into Kendall, then you are then you're not trying to qualify for Medicaid, right? So we don't have to worry about some of the requirements when it comes to Medicaid qualification, which places some significant control and benefit rules. What we're then going to be worried about is on the estate tax side. And with estate taxes, we get a little bit more flexibility in terms of what we can do with that irrevocable trust money. So definitely something that it doesn't forbid you, it doesn't foreclose the option to use that money. You just have to be kind of artful in how you're doing it and be conscious of the value of your estate, that you're keeping under the threshold. So I talked about the New York State threshold, giving you more than you wanted here, probably, Lois, but the New York State.
No, I love it.
So the New York State threshold is 6.9%, 6.9 million. Sorry. The federal threshold is 13.61 million right now. Now, there are a couple caveats with that. So under federal law, you have something called portability when it comes to the estate tax threshold, which is, so if I die, let's say I'm not married, but if I was married and I died and I had a $4 million estate, I would then be preserving 9.61 million. So there's the 13.6 threshold. I had an estate of 4 million. So 9.6 million. My estate could file an estate tax return. And now my wife would get, in addition to her 13.6, she would get 9.6 more. So when she passed away, she could have over $22 million of assets that would pass federal estate tax free. That is not true under New York law. New York does not have any portability. So as a result, you don't get the benefit of being married the way that you do under federal estate tax. So a lot of people don't know that. They assume, oh, well, there's portability and I've got this big threshold to use under New York State. That's not true. The other crazy thing about New York State estate taxes is that threshold I said was at 6.9. If you go 5% over that, you hit what they call the cliff, which means that all of your estate gets taxed at 16%, not just the amount that goes over 6.9 million. So that estate, that tax is huge. So up to 6.9 million or up to 13.6 million, you're getting hit at 16%. and then 13.6 and up, you're getting hit at 40%. So the estate tax rates are massive. The implications are huge. Final caveat, that 13.6 under federal law is a new phenomenon. Under the tax cut that was passed in late 2017, those thresholds increase significantly. At the end of next year, at the end of 2025, those tax cuts on the income side and on the estate tax side expire. So if Congress does nothing, which you may have seen Congress lately, they're pretty good at doing nothing. The estate tax threshold is going to come from a federal level, is going to come down from 13.6 to 5.49 million. And the New York State threshold is typically something around 60% of that. So the New York State threshold is going to come down to 3. So suddenly people that didn't think they were going to face a state tax are now going to be facing a state tax. And you guys know it, people on this call, $3 million in assets is not a lot in Westchester County, not a lot in Rockland County, New York, right? And so the estate, so you got to be conscious of that. Selfish plug, talk to an estate planning attorney and make sure that you're informed of if these laws expire and these thresholds come down in any significant way, that you're informed. That way you can adjust your estate plan accordingly. So we don't know what's going to happen with Congress. We don't know what's going to happen with these thresholds, but they are at all-time highs, and there's no guarantees that they will stay there. So I'll end the filibuster there. Joey, did you have any questions?
Yes. Joan asked, can Colin discuss a little more detail on tax deductibility of levels of the Kendal and Hudson monthly fee, depending on where you live on property?
Yeah, so I know that if you're getting, and Lois, you probably know this better than I do, but if you're getting medical care, right, the medical care that you're getting, that goes toward a tax deduction that you can get under federal law for medical costs. And I don't remember what the threshold is. It like 7.5% of AGI, or it's some percentage of AGI,
Yes.
right? Sorry,
7.5%.
7.5%. So if your medical costs are 7.5% or more, you then can get a tax deduction for your medical costs. So any part of your Kendal services that are specifically outlined for medical care, you get to write off. And so that's a big benefit of coming to a community like Kendal.
The other part is when you're in independent living, a good portion of your monthly service fee is tax deductible. For a single, people that filed their 23 returns, it was about 25,000. And for a couple, it's about 30,000. I'm just throwing round numbers out. But there is a life care portion when you pay your entrance fee. And we pull that number out for this year. It's 125,000. And that's 100% tax deductible.
Wow.
The first year you move in. So you get a nice benefit there. But when you do, let's say if you do then need 24-hour care and you move into skilled nursing, your entire monthly service fee, I believe, then becomes tax deductible. It goes up from there. So there's quite a bit of advantages with that, along with the protection against the cost, because you know what you're going to be paying. You have predictable costs. So that's good. But having a long-term care insurance policy is definitely a nice blend.
Yeah.
I always say when you move to Kendal, you don't need long-term care insurance, but if you have it, it's a nice blend, and it also gives you some other advantages. So either way, it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
No other questions. If anybody has questions for Colin, when you have the opportunity now, just pop it into that Q&A, and we'll be happy to forward that.
And when people are qualifying financially and they have an irrevocable trust, the position of, let's say, our finance director, when she's looking at that, those are their assets, right? It's looked as if the same whether they weren't in a trust.
So for purposes of Medicaid and for purposes of estate tax, it's considered as if they don't, since they no longer have control and benefit from those things, that's not available to them. In terms of your eligibility, I'm not sure how that's factored in. But like I said, if somebody's moving into Kendal, they're not trying to qualify for Medicaid. And so as a result, then that opens up a lot more possibilities when it comes to what you can do with those irrevocable trust funds. And then, that irrevocable trust, it stays in. So maybe you've got to get some money out through a gift and kind of, do a maneuver when it comes to that. But then additional assets can be titled over to that irrevocable trust going forward. And so they're not stationary. They don't have to be stationary. You can continue to give assets to that irrevocable trust. If you're making more money in an account and you say, well, I got this bank account over here, I don't need access to it anymore. Your trustee can take ownership of it, can title in the name of your irrevocable trust. So these things can evolve over time as well.
Well, that's all good information to have. And I can't tell you that I meet a lot of people, Kylan, that have a financial planner but don't have an estate attorney.
Yeah.
And that's a missing. It's like missing a front tooth when you're looking at your finances, right? I mean, you need the balance of both.
Yeah.
That can take care of the whole picture.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of financial advisors, and a lot of financial advisors will give their clients my card and say, we've done what we can on an investment, real estate side, but we now need to think about, we need to codify this, right? We need to put this into legal terms to ensure that it's protected going forward and that it's distributed the way that you want to distribute your estate. And so I'm often called in by financial advisors to help families with that. And so just to speak a little bit about me and the services that I provide, and I'll give my phone number out here in a minute as well before we go, but I do house calls. So I go to my clients. So a lot of my clients, obviously a lot of seniors, so they've got mobility issues. And maybe they've got a son or a daughter or a niece that's kind of quarterbacking the situation for them, and they're working. So I go to whoever's house you want me to go to, I'll go to. I do nights, I do weekends appointments as well. So I make it very easy for people to do estate planning. I know that it's the 55th thing on your list of things to do, right? But I try to make it as easy as possible for you to do it. Also, when you contact me, there's no receptionist or paralegal or phone tree, AI chatbot, whatever people are doing these days. You call my number, you get me. You email me, you get me. So it's a boutique service. And I love helping people with this stuff. As I said earlier, it helped my family to have all of these things in place. I've seen the importance of it. And unfortunately, in my practice, I've seen the folks that haven't taken care of it. And the downsides. And so if you want to get in touch with me, my phone number again is 914-714-4227. 914-714-4227. Joey, any questions? Or
Yes.
Lois, you want to say anything?
Go ahead, Joey.
Okay, so Elaine asks, does it pay to get long-term care in your late 70s?
So unfortunately, it would if you could get qualified for it. And unfortunately, you probably will not. These days, long-term care insurance, there are strict underwriting requirements with long-term care insurance now. And I don't think they would write a policy for somebody in their late 70s, unfortunately.
But you're good at Kendal.
Yeah, but you're good at Kendal. But you're good at
You're good at Kendal.
You're good at Kendal.
Well, yeah. Kylan, I have to say that I met you at a Rotary meeting, was our first meeting. And I saw then your passion but I saw your kindness and your warmth. And I think today when you work with people, it's so important to have someone that has empathy and understanding and is on your side. We have so little of that. So
Yeah.
I really truly appreciate you being here today. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Thank you so much. No, and that's a big thing for me is to try to put the personal back in this, because these are personal decisions, right? These
Mhm.
are family decisions. There's generational wealth that's involved here, and you don't want to trust that to a computer program. You don't want to trust that to an AI chatbot. You want somebody to
No.
come into your home and talk with you and run through the options with you and do right by your family. And I love helping families.
You sure do. So with that said, I
There's
want to
another
thank
question.
everyone. Oh,
One
there
more
is. Oh,
question.
go, Joey. Let's hear.
Okay. Allison's asked, she says, I have a family attorney. Do I need an estate attorney too?
Yeah, so I don't know what she means by family attorney necessarily, but so that could mean a family law attorney, which would be sort of like divorces and child custody and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely encourage that people to at least have a consultation. So like people, I offer free consultations. Have a consultation with somebody who's a specialist in estate law, is specialist in elder care and in elder law, because a lot of people, a lot of attorneys, I don't mean to speak ill of my brethren, but they estates, trusts, wills, powers of attorney. It's like their fifth, sixth, seventh practice area. They do criminal, they do personal injury. Have you been injured in an accident? They do real estate closings. They do, I think I say criminal litigation. Estate planning is on the back burner, and so they're just not going to be up on the latest trends. And while it feels like, oh, estate planning has probably been the same since Rockefeller, it's not. It's ever evolving, because tax law is ever evolving. People are always finding new nuances in the tax code. State laws are always changing. It's a very evolving area of the law. I even talked about that in 18 months the entire estate tax environment could be different. And so definitely talk to a specialist. And even if you've done these things, right? I often say, like, if you've had a transition in life or you've had a big life event, revisit it. So you may have done a will 10 years ago when you didn't have as many grandchildren as you do today, right? You may have done a will 15 years ago when you were still married and now you're not married anymore. And so definitely, it's good to just have a checkup, take a free consultation with an estate planning attorney, just do a checkup, make sure everything is still the way that you want it. And then you can move forward with confidence.
That's great advice. I always say, if you need a knee replacement, you're not going to go to a brain surgeon. You're gonna
Very true.
everybody has their specialty. So that's good. We did record today's presentation, and probably sometime next week it'll be on our YouTube channel. And Joey, do you email out the links to the folks after? How do you do it?
Everyone who's registered to come here, whether they showed up or not, will receive a link to the YouTube video once it goes live. So if you email me an hour from now asking for it, I can't give you the link because it doesn't exist yet.
Okay. Yeah, he needs a little bit to get it edited and loaded and all that good stuff. So um we will not be having an event in July or August. So I want everyone to have a wonderful summer. For those folks who are on our who are waitlist members, there's going to be a fantastic series of lectures in July, and it's about plays that have been written over the centuries and how they relate to the